Graziano, welcome to the Marist Saturday series. Thank you so much for joining us today. And I want to thank Professor Conover for introducing us. I believe that you two worked together at one point.
Yes, we did. Please say hi to Stephanie, and thanks for putting us in contact.
Yes.
Pleasure to be with you today, John.
Really. Thank you very much. And as we were talking before, so this is a Saturday series, and this is available to all of the students, both in design and merchandising. And I know that your career has touched upon all of those worlds. So I'd like to talk a little bit about each of those areas. But I'd like to first ask you, just how did you get your start in the fashion industry?
Oh, it was a pure chance, John.
As always, those are the best.
It's always happened. Yeah, never. Actually, it was not planned at all. After I was born and raised in Italy, northeast of Italy, outside Venice, and then after graduating, I joined a great American consulting and auditing company called Arthur Andersen back in those days. And then after not long, an Italian, one of the biggest Italian apparel company came and knocked on my door called Marzotto.
Yes.
And Marzotto was one of the two biggest Italian apparel textile company.
Yeah.
And they happened to be from very close by my hometown, and I decided to leave Arthur Andersen and join them in the finance and accounting department. And not really thinking of going into fashion, as you will say, but just going to work for a great company in the finance department, basically. But then I fell in love with the company and with the job and the whole industry, and that's been the rest of my life, pretty much.
And did anybody in your family work in the fashion industry?
In a way, yes, because both my mom and my dad actually had a store in my hometown. Yeah, a general, apparel store that, typical old Italians, little towns, selling everything from socks to suits, pretty much. And but they never, I have three siblings, my brother and two sisters, and none of them ended up, carrying on the stores and all that.
Yeah.
But then on the other side, ended up in fashions, nevertheless. And who knew?
You never know. You've had Graziano, an incredible career trajectory, and you've run, and please correct me if I'm wrong, you've run 3 U.S. businesses for 3 major Italian luxury companies. Can you describe the relationship between the home office in Italy and the U.S. subsidiary?
Yeah, it's, I've been privileged to work for great companies, Italians, mostly Italians, but also, a couple of American and Swiss. It has been different from company to company based on the state of the business and the structure of the central organizations. When I came over to New York, to the US, I came over with Marzotto. That was, they transferred me over here, and that's how I ended up here. And at that time, we were just coming over because we were taking over a local distributor and converting it into a company-owned office and showroom subsidiary, full subsidiary. And in that respect, we had a very good degree of autonomy and flexibility in working. Yes, with of course head office in Italy, but at the same time implementing and adopting the things that were needed to really build a business in America. Different from other realities that I joined later on that were more established. And therefore, once you are more established as a company, as a subsidiary, natural there are pre-existing structures, processes, relationship in place that you need to follow in order to basically operate and carry on, the long-term plans of the group in that respect. So it really depends on the stage of the business of the overall company.
Yeah. And I imagine because each market around the world is different and has different needs, a different customer, different fits.
Mhm.
And so I imagine that in many ways you were the translator to kind of deliver that information to to the the Italian to the home base,
Mhm.
and also help to educate and inform the U.S. customer.
Yeah, I mean, naturally, when you oversee a region of the world or a market, you are the in between person or entity with your team, and I wanted to underline the team
Yes.
aspects, that is needed to really, uh, again, implement global strategy and at the same time adopt and take advantage of the local opportunities. And when it comes to our industries, the biggest ones that always comes to mind is the product and the merchandising that is needed to get the global collection, sold at the local level in America, in my case, or in the Asia market if you run the Asian markets, or whatever other regions of the world you run. And it's no different in that respect. I remember handling back in the days we used to have. A network of sales reps, of agents throughout the US, particularly menswear. You probably know that as well, very, very well. And the same kind of conversations that were going on between our subsidiaries and our headquarters in Italy were happening between the rep that covered California and the West Coast versus the rep that covered the Midwest. Different needs, different requirements versus the rep that covers, Florida, that want to, colorful and lightweight all year round, and the other one want to, parkas in fall.
Yeah.
So those idiosyncrasies are always present in the business and always will be, and you can scale it all the way up at a global level. You can scale it all the way down to literally, a state or even a county in that respect. So what are the different needs and requirements based on, and also, in today's days that you have so much data available that you can dissect it at the level of within the geography, at the level of ethnicity and backgrounds and age and other things, that to micro targets you're offering to fulfill the consumer need, whoever that consumer is.
I love it. Yeah, I know that when I was working, excuse me, in Italy, we had a showroom in Milan, we had one in Tokyo, and one in New York. And I found, it was so interesting to always see like which countries and within those countries, which cities, what these different stores or customers bought. And it was always a challenge to, if a company comes or a store comes from Florida, as you mentioned, or from a warm country or a warm part of the country, and they want something that's lighter weight, colorful. And then on the other hand, I would be designing things that were much heavier, more traditional fall, winter clothing. And it was difficult because on one hand, of course, I wanted to satisfy the demands or the asks from these different stores, but I also wanted to be true to the vision, whatever that vision was for that season. And you can't always please everybody, but at the same time, the customer is always right. So there's definitely that dynamic that I know is always in play.
Yeah, and the customer is always right to a degree, of how strong your brand is. And the stronger your brand, the more the customer is going to buy whatever you put out.
Yeah.
The weaker your branding and the staying power of your name, the more you are at the mercy of the consumers in that respects, and you're going to do whatever the consumer wants. Exactly. So when you are hot, no matter what, you come out, you design, you produce, you show up, no matter what Supreme does, okay, people are gonna line up, online, or gonna line up physically around the corner as they used to down in Soho. to buy, no matter what it is. So it's true. But again, I mean, the diversity in product has always been there. I think that it's going to be maybe more challenges to an extent going forward. Back in the days, and I don't want to keep saying that, but there was maybe more flexibility in the development side of the product. And I think that particularly now in the last few months with the advent of this terrible COVID-19 has brought everybody to even more so control their development costs, i.e. limits their samples, limit their developments, and so forth, which limits naturally the possibility of having, a collection that fulfill multiple markets, multiple consumer type possibilities. So you have to be even smarter now in really knowing, where you want to build your business, who you want your customers to be, where he or she is, and so forth. Because when you have a collection, remember Hugo Boss used to have collections of 800, 1,000, even plus of 1,000 samples. So you have a lot of product in there that you can really, have, these 10 pieces are for that customer, these 10 pieces are for that market. Because yes, Korea is different than Japan, and Japan is different than China, and China is different than Indonesia, and Indonesia naturally is different than Australia, and then you can go on and on and on. So more and more, I think that is going to be a challenge now going forward for a lot of the businesses, particularly in the apparel business, less in the accessories, because we know that when it comes to a handbag, if you're doing a great job and developing the product and marketing the product, it can easily become not really easy, but it can become a worldwide hit and a handbag. And I don't want to make it easier in any aspects. Don't misunderstand me for that kind of business, because it's equally very, very challenging like the apparel. But in so many ways, you can have products that last multiple seasons, if not multiple years, if not even forever, like Chanel or Hermes teaches us, and versus the apparel, where instead there is a lot more seasonality and shorter term life for the product, so even more challenge there.
No, it's true. And handbags they can become evergreen, and with clothing, you're doing multiple sizing, and the sizing has to be so specific. In most handbags, it's one size fits all, which is the beauty of it. So I have a question from one of the students, and it goes like this: having worked for Valentino, Prada, and Armani, three of the biggest luxury houses in the world, what are the similarities and the differences between the three, besides the fact that they're Italian and their design aesthetic?
But we know clearly, and thank you for the question. We know clearly the difference in their aesthetics and the philosophy behind. Talking more of the similarities, I think under all three of those great companies that I was fortunate to work with and fortunate to meet the designers and CEOs and so forth, it is more really the passion and the drive to pursue their visions of beauty and their vision of fashion and products that really fulfills their own dreams first, but also a dream of having the product worn by as many people as possible to an extent. Then of course there is some of them in the case, for example, of Armani. I've been saying forever, has been the most democratic luxury designer in the world by far, having been the first to not just go after in a big way to a democratic kind of design sensibility, but also in developing Armani Exchange as a quasi fast fashion concept back in the early 90s. Okay, before we knew of Zara and H&M, and at the same time coming out, later on with Armani Privé, with the haute couture collections. No other designers has ever developed that breadth of offering of products, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, versus for example a Valentino who has done the best job of all the Italian designers in developing a really high-end couture, Paris kind of based, ready to wear, and now accessories also with Pier Paolo and Maria Grazia, now Pier Paolo Piccioli alone, but a more, kind of precise targets of customers versus a broader kind of markets. And then in between, but not necessarily in between. In that respects, I mean, you have the Prada and with Miuccia and incredible inventions in so many aspects in our industries, from the adoptions of stretch, for example. It's a given now, right? But back in the early 90s, when Miuccia really adopted as a staple and not as a cheap product, it made a big wave in the world of high fashion. And also Miuccia with an amazing partner, Bertelli, incredible in developing a brand that is, very democratic in its own way and yet very elitist in another way, but yet that continues to be extremely of the moment.
Oh, yeah, and I'm excited to see the Prada Raf Simons collaboration. Right. That's going to be very, very exciting. But I actually, my first job in New York City was working at the Armani store, and so I learned so much about Mr. Armani and his design aesthetic, and I got to spend time with the clothing. And that's one of the things that I always tell my students that for me was a big learning curve, was working in retail, working in the world of retail, working on the floor, really meeting your customer where they are. And I learned so much, whether it was working in someone else's store or I had my own store, and I learned so much more than I could looking at numbers or going to even to a department store. And I think that I wanted to ask you actually, now that we are in this new world with COVID-19, how do you see the role of brick and mortar retail?
It's here to stay in a way. On the other way, the world has turned upside down, and I think in a good way, and sooner or later had to happen. The digital had to kind of take over the physical, and it's as we all know that trend has been exponentially now fast forwards. And I think the question to me more now is going to be what's going to happen in the future, when more and more companies eventually will understand that they need to think and act digital first and physical second, and how physical then will relate to digital versus what has been the mindset until pretty much recently, where everything was physical, and then how do you translate that to digital? I go back to I was a crazy thinker when I launched Valentino e-commerce in 2003, and everybody thought, including people inside my company, that was just wasting money. I was crazy, but I ended up even buying the domain Valentino.com, which we did not own, because I believe in the future of that, and in the future also of having a global domain for a brand. And I said, .com will be the global domain, in my opinion. Thank God I was right. I could have been wrong, and I could be, stupid, which probably I was. But anyway, and until recently, the assortment, for example, of a selection for retail and digital was done, the buyers and whoever was in charge of merchandising, they were buying for the stores and this and that. And then they were selecting what to put online. okay, particularly on the ready-to-wear side, right? I mean, now, I mean, I think we've learned that you have to put as much as you can or want to an extent, naturally, without, you know, overfeeding the potential demand and overexposing the brands, uh, and 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 then really thinking how you want to handle the physical retail, because it's much more important to have digital visibility, not just in terms of e-commerce, of course, but in terms of general, you know, visibility for the brand and the product. So I think that it's again fast forwarding the shift to you know, as somebody wrote, I recently I saw it, they call it O2O, online to offline. Uh, and I like that very, very much, because I think in terms of everything, of course, we're talking just about product. It's not just about product, in terms of customers and data and everything else. The mindset will need to be digital first and physical
I
after.
think that's fascinating because you're right. I think most, especially, I would imagine a lot of the luxury companies, especially because of the high price of the garments and the handbags, the accessories, they would always consider the retail, the physical retail first, and then kind of make a selection of things that they thought would make sense online. And I love this idea that it's on to off, because it's true. It's like it has shifted. And again, it's kind of shifted overnight. And I think that, of course, there are a lot of people that had the vision before today to really invest in the e-commerce world. And I think it's been really interesting to watch, because I think in many ways, the luxury brands, while they've been online, I don't know how quick to the market they were with the sort of the e-commerce. And I'm sure some of them, again, have had to really play catch up.
No, it's true. I mean, actually, luxury was very late.
Yeah.
Luxury has been very late to the digital revolution that has been happening in the world, in society, in the world of business in general, and to many extent, is still catching up.
Yeah.
In that respect. You know, there's still brands. I mean, Chanel still does not sell, you know, anything but sunglasses and beauty online on e-commerce. Everything else you have to go to the stores. Okay. I one way I praise them, very kind of old world luxury thinking, and chapeau for that. On one way, on the other way is like, okay, how long is that gonna be lasting? You know. And even talking about the stores, you know, back to your question before, I'm curious to see the evolutions also of the stores, of the physical stores, because I think that the consequences of COVID-19 will be long lasting past the vaccine that hopefully soon will be coming, because I think we'll be dealing with this for God knows how many years and decades, and maybe forever, right? It's like the flu. It could be potentially that you need the vaccine every year and so forth. So even from a store design and presentations and accessibilities, I think there's tremendous opportunity to reinvent the physical store and redesign. You know, when think about the major things that are happening now that are constraints on one side and opportunities on the other sides. Yeah, number one, you know, how do you test, if you can test, if a walk-in customer into a store, you know, has COVID? Okay. I don't know, but you know, back in the days, if you had, you know, dirt in your boots, you know, you had a mud room to walk into your house first, right?
Yeah.
So are we gonna be inventing some sort of a pre-screening room into a stores? I don't know, but maybe, you know, maybe there is technology that can allow that even without touching the customers to immediately detect anything. The other big thing that is happening, like buy online, pick up in store. Okay, if you think of the evolution of the store architecture, where the whole store has become a kind of a living room, home, showroom, displays, and all that. You know, do you want to be there and see people in and out picking up packages all the time? No, right? How is that going to be evolved? And I welcome the thinking of architects and the people are going to be involved in rethinking how that is going to be handled, to treat with equal respect the customer walking in to pick up a package or make a return. Okay, more and more happening, of course, because of e-commerce and COVID, versus the customers walk in to really want to be treated, okay, with the glass of champagnes and take her time and sit in the sofa and you have a model presenting the outfits and so forth. And the third element is, what happens outside the store. I remember always saying to the people, when I was going to travel and visit stores around, always many times I took, even the store manager outside and look how the sidewalk looks. Because yes, it's now my responsibility. I don't pay rent, but if it is dirty, chances are that customer is going to have a bad opinion about my store. And in addition to that, now that there is buy online and pick up in store, how are we going to handle the outside of the stores, including parking lots? I think the parking lots could be the most extravagant, experiential retail opportunities out there. It's still right now, it's just a boring, simple, you drive up or whatever, you park and then you walk to the outside, somebody comes out and hands you a package and so forth. But how can that be leveraged instead, maybe for a higher level of engagement and higher level of satisfaction of the customer? Because it is part of the experience, particularly in luxury in that respect. So it'll be fascinating to see how people will come up with ideas or ways to handle those challenges and opportunities at the same time.
I love all of those ideas and thoughts, because I think that the architects and the store designers are going to be, of course, they have to rethink everything right now. And there's this brand, Bonobos, and I thought that was really interesting because when they launched their retail stores, because they started online, so again, they were off to in, they didn't have all their stock in the store. They would have sort of one of everything. You'd figure out what your size is. You'd see the products in person, but then you would order it and then it would be delivered to your home. And that I thought was visionary. And it's kept them from having to hold all of the stock in the stores. They've been able to have smaller retail footprints. And I do think that in many ways, that's the way of the future. Now, speaking of digital, because I agree with you, and I think that it's going to be very challenging.
John, let me say something that comes to mind to this point of less inventory. One of the big mantra of the future for our industry, but in general for society, will be the sustainable purpose of a business, right? Yes. And just think how much less inventory gets produced if more is offered online and less is offered in the physical store, right? Is no different than showrooms going digital, and you as a brand, instead of having to make 30 sets of samples for each regions of the world, you just make one and it's available on one of the great platforms like Jor, right? That's all the retailers can go and buy. So to me, it's a very dear and important aspect, these ones, because I do believe in the future of physical stores, and I love them, and yes, they'll be there. But they will have to find also a place within the broader purpose of the company, of the brand, in limiting the damage to that we're making by having an oversupply of product in general, and making exactly something like Bonobos had done.
And I appreciate you bringing up the whole concept of, or the issue and the theme of sustainability. In speaking with the students, sustainability is very much top of mind. And I think that, again, it's been that idea and the journey, the exploration of sustainability has been going on for some time now. But I think that, again, the fashion world is slowly starting to wake up. And I do believe that every company worth its weight is going to really look at sustainability, try to be as transparent as possible, and really back into all of their systems, their supply chain, all the way to the customer and how they can reduce their footprint. And I'm so curious because, again, because the students are so interested in this, I would like to think about what those new jobs, what those new opportunities might be in sustainability within a luxury company.
No, it's absolutely going to be one of the biggest opportunity. I think that the revolution of the digital economy will only be equal to the revolutions of the sustainable economy in that respect. And those are definitely gonna be, in my opinion, the two mantras of our industry in the future, but not only, of course, the fashion industry, many other industries that have a lot of waste and a lot of whatever pollutions or increasing on negative impact on the environment. So yeah, there will be tremendous opportunities. And I think that's when we talk about the opportunity is multiple aspects, as you are mentioning, because it is on of course on the productions and sourcings and materials side of the business, but it's also on the front end of the business. So sustainability goes hands in hands with the circularity of the economy, and in that respect, on the whole life cycle of the individual product per se, and touches so many aspects, of the economy and societies and so forth, from, of course, the environment and CO2 to, human rights and minimum wages and so forth. So, and thank God we're talking more and more about, ESG and in all its aspects. And I was extremely happy as an individual, as a citizen, last year when the Business Roundtable, the big roundtable of top CEOs of companies in the U.S., joined and redrafted the purpose of the corporations in stating that the purpose of the corporation is not only to increase values for shareholders, but to serve all stakeholders. And that's just the beginning of it. To me, an amazing revolution opportunity for any business to do the right things in all sides of the business. And I think that when it comes then to our industry particularly, because we do make and sell a product that can have multiple life versus food, okay? And yes, there is, of course, sustainability opportunity on food and waste and all that. But, when a steak is rotten, unfortunately, it's rotten. There's nothing you can do. When a shirt is old, it's just old. It's not rotten, right? So there is maybe even a bigger opportunity to think in terms of sustainability. And I think that's the sustainability that I want to also promote more is, again, exactly on the front end of the business, and the circularity on the product once it leaves the ownership of the brand. The brand has the companies to do, of course, and every brand is going to end up doing more and more in making sure that their product is made and sold and developed and sold in the proper way, in a fair way. But then also there is the whole life after product is sold to customers, and not just one customers, but then that customers might again put it up for sales again and on a platform and so forth, and that's been a booming market, right, as we know. So in that respect, I think that particular luxury company are going to start thinking in terms of how do we actually manage the second life or third life of our products, okay? And how do we control it? I compare to what has been happening over the years in the automobile industry, and more the luxury car makers have taken over control of the second secondhand market of cars. And now most of their cars are sold by certified pre-owned, they call it, Mercedes or BMWs or so forth, right? So I welcome one day luxury brands first, and then maybe others also to follow, and take charge, and maybe even end up bringing in-house a second market. I think that some brands are going to probably end up wanting to control the circularity of their products all the way, taking responsibility from a sustainable point of view on one side, and then at the other side, by doing that, also kind of controlling the branding and the marketing of that product after it changes hands, pretty much, because that market again is gonna continue to grow no matter what. Because again, unless you burn it, and we don't burn it anymore, thank God, a shirt's gonna be a shirt for a very long time.
Oh,
I welcome, actually. I don't know if you're familiar with a friend of mine. We used to work together for a little bit at Armani. He has started a business, amazing business called Atelier and Repair. Yeah, check it out. Actually, you should have it on the show because he's really brilliant mind. Fellow Italian also, but living also like myself in America for a long time, based in LA. Atelier and Repair. And he has a great line. He says, the most sustainable product is the one that was never made. But he does amazing things, really giving second life to amazing great products.
I think that's fascinating, and that, I think, again provides a lot of impetus on the companies to communicate even more so with their customer, to maintain these relationships. Pardon me, so that the customer just doesn't come in and buy something, but they stay in touch, and the customer knows that somehow they kind of almost co-own this product, and they have shared responsibility. And I think that I agree with you. I think that there's wonderful opportunities for companies to really start thinking about what happens to their product once it leaves their hands, because in a way there still is some responsibility. And it's a whole new world, and I love that thinking. Now, one more
technology. Sorry, John. Technology also will help a lot, because with the advent of IoT, the Internet of Things, and the ability of every single item, every single units of products, individually tagged and so forth, and the ability to track it and and look after it, is essential, including the element of authenticity, to make sure that that is an authentic Hermes or Chanel or Valentino or Armani or Prada or so forth, is critical in the ability to also then manage, from a brand point of view, then market in that respect. So technology is playing a big role in facilitating eventually that movement.
Fascinating. It's a new world. Now, one more question just about the world of digital. So we've gone, again, very quickly into this world of reimagining the fashion show. And it's been nice to see Europe starting to do some shows in person. And yet many companies, and especially in New York, we're not there yet, many companies are rethinking the fashion show and thinking about it digitally, thinking about it in person. It's no longer this venue where you can invite thousands of people. It's a whole new conversation. And I was wondering if you had any thoughts about the future of fashion shows, or in the near future, and then also looking out into the future, into the next 10 years, as far as the relationship between live shows and digital.
I mean, there's tons of smarter people than I am that are thinking about that and figuring out, what the evolution will be. I do think that for the time being, it's just wise not to, kind of provoke crowds to get together and limits the risk of spreading COVID in that respect. But yeah, I do believe that there will always be a room and a reason for a fashion show to exist. And yes, we know that, nothing takes away from being the adrenaline that gets created from being present at a show at the moment, and so forth. It's like, you get goosebumps on in a special way. But then on the other side, again, the digital world is evolving very, very fast. So I questions, the pure concept of a fashion show, if it should remain as we knew it, or if that should also evolve. Okay, because the introductions of merch, as the cool kids call it in today's days, through the launch of a digital online concert by Travis Scott with Fortnite. Okay, had 25 million people watching the the whole thing, and not just 500 people watching the show or 1,000 people watching the show, whatever that number is. So I think that the digital world will come up with new opportunities and ideas to take that old concept of a fashion show and evolve it for the digital space and make it impactful, both from a fashion trends relevance point of view, to of course also a commercial opportunity, as it's always been. And and even in the digital space, the things that are not tactful or how do you say, affecting your senses, will evolve. I mean, we haven't even seen yet the impact of artificial intelligence applied to virtual reality or augmented reality, and so forth. So, who knows what that will be one day, when you'll be able to kind of self-immerse yourself digitally into a fashion show that is happening God knows where. Okay, you actually probably feel you are there. Okay, yeah. and so forth. So I think that's again, make a long story short, hopefully the fashion show as we knew will never go away, but I'm very much looking forward to a new evolution of fashion show than
Absolutely. No, I think it's and again, it's kind of like science fiction that's going to happen very quickly. Mm-hmm. And Helmut Lang was actually one of the first designers. He moved, and he didn't do this. He did this for one season, but I remember this was maybe late 90s. He did a fashion show that was live streamed, and so nobody was at the show. It was all live streamed, and I think that he showed it in Grand Central. But it was such a new concept to many people, and he was such a visionary with regards to the internet as well as and this idea of showing digitally.
Yeah, I mean, we'll also have to see how some way the industry evolves. We have had a lot of different iterations of different concepts in the last few years, right? From the influence of streetwear in terms of drops versus runway shows or collection presentations, right? And that has had an impact. And some luxury brands even have, to an extent, adopted it, like Moncler, for example, right? But I don't think that's the end of it, right? I don't think that's the drop was only a moment. I think that the concept of introducing products kind of in a continuous way, but in a smart way, and sometimes even in an unpredictable way, and not just being, March and October is Paris, and February and September is Milan, kind of thing, and all that. And I think that's the new generations and not just the new generations, the younger generations, I mean, are gonna really want to see and learn about new products in a digital way somehow, and in a very immediate way, independently from the accessibility of that product and time availability. So it's again, it's a multiple aspect opportunity of how the industry will evolve in terms of timing of collections, product development, presentations, and marketing of it.
Yeah, so it's going to be very interesting for the marketers in this industry. So Graziano, I have one question, and really this is for our students especially. What one piece of advice might you share with the students? And I think we spoke about this a little bit, but if you could maybe just touch upon it again, what are the opportunities that you see coming forward for people entering the industry?
Again, I think that's any business right now is looking more and more on how to become digital first in all aspects.
Yeah.
And yet, of course, you're still gonna have to end up in our industry if you're on the creative sides, touching a piece of fabric and touching a prototype at one point or another. Okay, yes. Touching a sample at one point or another. But I think if I was a young student right now, I would absolutely look at the huge opportunity that the digital space in large present, and because it's really every aspect of a business is becoming digital first. The creative, the productions, the sourcing, the merchandising, the selling, the showrooms, the retailing, the commerce, and e-commerce, and it's an explosion of opportunities, right? I mean, I remember when I set up, it's how long ago is that? I mean, it's many years ago. Set up the first digital marketing positions for one of the brand I was working, but in today's days is you cannot just have digital marketing in the marketing departments of a brands, because even the digital in terms of commerce is exploding. I call it the alphabet commerce at this point, because we started with e-commerce, but then we added mobile commerce, and then we added video commerce, and then we added social commerce, and now the big rage and big opportunities in live stream commerce. Yeah. So you have you have the E, you have the M, you have the S commerce, you have all kind of commerce, and honestly, right now maybe that's all handled under one roof, but they will become separate channels and will require different degrees of expertise, because they are going to be different way of reaching customers, different age customers, right? Different needs. So it is, just as an example, it's an explosion of opportunity in the digital space. So I will focus on that if I was a young student, for sure. And then the other aspect is, again, the what we talked before about, how lots of companies, and hopefully all companies, will also keep in mind how to develop a business that is a fair business and sustainable business, and the opportunities in new jobs that will create, that will have to be smart jobs, because we're not looking for people to go and police the level of pollution that is creating. Companies will be looking for people that will help them evolve towards a more sustainable business model.
Exactly. Beautiful. So Graziano de Boni, thank you so much for joining us at Marist. And on behalf of the students and the faculty, we're so grateful to you. And hopefully when we become post-COVID, or whatever that's going to look like, we would love for you to come visit us here at the steel plant and share more of your wisdom. It's been such a pleasure speaking with you.
It will be a pleasure to come, John. And again, thank you for having me. And,
you were fantastic.
The best to everybody. Have a great year. Have a great year, guys, everybody.
Thank you. You gave us so much to think about, really, and very, very grateful.
My pleasure. Thank you again for having me. Okay.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.